former President Donald Trump will no longer hold a press conference at Mar-a-Lago tomorrow, marking 1 year since the January 6th attack. On that day, thousands of pro-Trump supporters swarmed the Capitol building, disrupting Congress's efforts to certify President Biden's election win. Trump had intended to reiterate his unfounded claims of mass voter fraud at tomorrow's event. He says he now plans to discuss those allegations at a rally later on this month instead. And the House committee investigating the insurrection is now looking to speak to Fox News host Sean Hannity and former Vice President Mike Pence. Catherine Herridge has more on what the panel's seeking from them. And she also spoke to a veteran Capitol Police officer who continues to struggle after the attack.
Sergeant Akalina Donnell has been deployed to Iraq, but he told CBS News January 6th was the day he thought he would die.
At the west entrance, as rioters scaled scaffolding set up for the inauguration, Capitol Police Sergeant Akalina Donnell was beaten and his spirit nearly broken. Are you suffering?
Yes. I mean, from every day for me, it's been a January 6th.
On Twitter, the 16-year veteran of the Capitol Police Force documented his injuries to dispel claims that minimize last year's violence. Donnell told us he still can't shake the trauma.
The way I sleep, from the way I put my shirt on, the way I take a shower, the physical therapy twice a week, the mental health therapy once a week.
Donnell, who testified to Congress earlier this year, is now doing administrative work rather than patrols.
It's been hard, emotionally, physically, and financially as well, too.
The Select Committee investigating the attack on the Capitol now wants to hear from Fox News host Sean Hannity about his text messages with the White House before the riots. On December 31st, Hannity texted then White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, "I do not see January 6 happening the way he is being told." 5 days later, to an unknown recipient, Hannity wrote, "I'm very worried about the next 48 hours. And on January 10th, to Meadows and Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan, "Guys, we have a clear path to land the plane in 9 days. He can't mention the election again." Hannity's lawyer told CBS News they are reviewing the committee's request. Now, nearly a year after about 140 police officers were assaulted, some with lethal weapons, Donnell says action needs to be taken to prevent this from happening again.
If we don't put a deterrent on some of these and hold people accountable for what they did, this could be a recurring thing every 4 years.
And 3 more officers who defended the Capitol on January 6 are now suing former President Trump for his alleged, quote, wrongful conduct inciting a riot. This lawsuit should be heard by a federal judge next week. Vlad and Marie?
All right, Catherine, thank you very much.
And Kris Van Cleave is following all of this from the Capitol, and he's here with us. So, Kris, let's start with these lawsuits. These officers accuse the former president of playing a critical role in fanning the flames of the attack and violating laws, as you heard from Catherine, violating laws about inciting riots. These are 3 new officers, but I think there were 7 officers before that also filed a lawsuit. Is there any sort of legal merit to this? What are people saying about the ability of these lawsuits to hold up?
Well, I'm certainly not a lawyer, so I can't analyze their legal merit. They're alleging basically that the former president has some liability, some civil liability for his actions and his role. They allege in inciting the riot on the Capitol. These cases will have to go forward. They'll get their day in court, or one thing that former President Trump is skilled at is stretching out the litigation process. So I wouldn't expect you would see any resolution quickly. But there certainly, that there is an argument to be made here that that the former president, could have some civil liability potentially. That warrants further consideration by a judge here. The first lawsuit by those 7 officers you mentioned, I believe, is ongoing. I wouldn't expect a quick resolution from either of them, as the process just takes time.
So, Kris, the fear and trauma continues, as you know, for many Capitol Police officers who were beaten, who were abused by rioters nearly a year after the attacks. You were there. What resources, if any, have been given to those officers?
Well, and you should also note that this has impacted staff and people who work in the Capitol as well. That the trauma goes far beyond those brave officers that were battling these rioters for hours and hours. Officers have been offered mental health services, as have staff here at the Capitol. The department brought in emotional support animals, as a way to sort of break the ice. They've also encouraged peer-to-peer counseling, if you will, officers reaching out to other officers and talking about their experiences. One of the challenges in law enforcement is getting police officers to talk about their feelings. They don't like to do that, and for many officers, January 6th was a very, very traumatic experience. We know the Capitol Police saw an increased number of officers leave the department over the last year, about 130. That was up some from what they would normally see. And now they are they're trying to recruit 280 new officers to help with staffing issues. I mean, I think one of the other challenges for many of these officers, the department is short-staffed. These guys, men and women, have been working long hours for a year. And in the weeks and months immediately after January 6th, they were working 6- and 7-day weeks, 12-hour shifts. I mean, this has been a tough year for the United States Capitol Police. And so they have been offered resources, but, many of them are still very much working through what they experienced that day, as are staff and people who covered it.
I want to ask you about the House committee investigating the attack on the Capitol. They've spoken to some 300 people or so, but really very interesting. We've learned that they also want to talk to Fox News host Sean Hannity. We've seen some text messages that he sent out. What do they want to find out from him? They also want to talk to White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows as well. Yeah,
so remember, Mark Meadows, when he was cooperating with the committee, turned over thousands and thousands of pages of documents, which included text message conversations. Among those conversations were between Meadows and Sean Hannity. So the committee wants to talk to Mr. Hannity about those communications. And they say they have dozens of texts from Hannity to Meadows and other Trump White House officials in the run-up between the election and the attack on the Capitol, where they were talking about strategy. And so it raises some questions about, who knew what when, and what the thinking in the room was, which it would appear that Sean Hannity may have had some insight to that wasn't previously known. The committee has asked for his voluntary cooperation. His lawyer says they're reviewing the request.
All right, Kris Van Cleave for us on the Hill. Kris, as always, we appreciate it, my friend. Thank you.
Sure thing. Good to see you.